The small Earth ship moved slowly toward the huge space station. Inside, 5 young humans sat quietly, each thinking about what would happen next. They were going to the best military school in the galaxy, and they were nervous. Jake Martinez looked out the window at the massive station. It was beautiful and strange, with smooth curves that seemed to flow like water through space. Nothing on Earth looked like this. "Wow, look at that thing," he said softly. "It's amazing," said Lisa Park. She used to study engineering back on Earth and was picked for this mission because she was smart with numbers and plans. "I wonder how they built something so big." Ryan Cole was checking his gear for the 3rd time. He used to be a soldier and was chosen to show what Earth's military was like. But he worried that his experience might not mean much here. "Remember what they told us," he said. "We're here to watch and learn, not to show off." Amy Foster nodded. She was a doctor who had learned to be patient with difficult cases. "These aliens have been doing this for hundreds of years before we even had spaceships. We need to listen and learn." The last member of their team, Pete Williams, stayed quiet. He used to fly planes for the Air Force and was the type who liked to watch before doing anything. That skill would be important here. When their ship connected to the station, an alien greeted them. Instructor Vexhai was tall and made of what looked like living crystal. His people had helped start the Big Space Alliance. His many eyes looked at the humans like they were interesting but not very important. "Welcome to Kepler Station," Vexhai said. His voice sounded musical but cold. "You are the first humans to come to our academy. I hope you understand how special this chance is." The humans nodded politely. They had been told many times how lucky they were to be here and how important it was to make a good impression. "Your planet is what we call a Class 12 death world," Vexhai said as he led them through halls full of many different alien species. "This has made you physically strong, but military planning needs intelligence, patience, and hundreds of years of knowledge. These are not things we usually see from worlds that make people fight just to survive." Jake wanted to argue but kept quiet. They had expected the aliens to think this way about humans. "You will watch our advanced training exercises," the instructor continued. "The grand strategic simulation starts tomorrow. You should feel lucky. Most species need decades of study before they can even watch this exercise." The instructor showed them to their rooms. As they walked, Lisa whispered to Ryan, "Did you hear that? He said watch, not join in." Ryan nodded. They were here like animals in a zoo, not like real students. The next morning, the humans met other cadets from across the galaxy. There were tall blue aliens with 4 arms, small furry creatures that spoke in high voices, and beings made of gas that floated in special suits. All of them had been studying military strategy for years. During breakfast, the humans sat at their own table. The alien food was strange but edible. Around them, other cadets talked about complex battle plans and political strategies that the humans barely understood. "They're all so smart," Amy whispered. "Listen to them talk about multi-system economics and diplomatic theory." "Yeah, but they're also really slow," Pete said quietly. "That blue guy over there has been explaining the same basic concept for 10 minutes. Jake watched the aliens interact. They were polite and careful with each other, like they had all the time in the world. "It's like they've never had to make a quick decision in their lives," he said. "Maybe they haven't," Ryan replied. "If you live on a safe world where everything is planned out, you don't need to think fast." Lisa was studying the alien cadets with scientific interest. "Look how they move, how they talk. Everything is slow and deliberate. They probably think we're crazy with how fast we do things." As they finished eating, Instructor Vexhai approached their table. "Humans," he said, "today you will observe the beginning of our grand strategic simulation. You will sit in the back and watch quietly. Do not interrupt or ask questions during the exercise." "Understood, sir," Jake replied for all of them. "Good. Follow me." As they walked toward the simulation room, Jake looked at his teammates. They were about to see what the galaxy considered the ultimate test of military thinking. Part of him was excited to learn. Another part was already wondering if these aliens were as smart as they thought they were. The simulation room was enormous. with a giant holographic display showing star systems, fleets, and political boundaries. Dozens of alien cadets stood around the edges, their faces serious and focused.
This simulation, Vexhai announced, represents 800 years of military wisdom. It is the most complex strategic challenge in known space. The humans looked at each other. They were about to see just how different their way of thinking
was from the rest of the galaxy. And somewhere in the back of Jake's mind, a small voice was already asking, what if there was a better way to do this? The simulation room was huge, filled with a giant holographic display that showed an entire star system in 3D. Dozens of alien cadets from different species stood around the room, all staring at the complex display that showed spaceships, planets, trade routes, and political borders. Instructor Vexhai spoke to all the cadets with serious importance. The Grand Strategic Simulation is the hardest test in our galaxy's military education. This challenge has been improved over 800 years, using the wisdom of our greatest generals and strategists. The humans stood at the back of the room, clearly meant to just watch. Around them, cadets from the Zenthari people, the Keth Empire, and many other alien species got ready for what was obviously a very important event. This scenario, Vexhai continued, shows a three-way war between major powers. There are also 14 neutral systems that you can win over through talking, trading, or careful pressure. Experienced strategists usually take 6 to 8 weeks to finish this test. The record is held by the famous General Thaxmore of Keth, who did it in 4 weeks and 2 days. The holographic display showed how complex everything was. Political connections linked different groups, trade relationships created weak points, and military forces were spread across many star systems in a careful balance. To win, the instructor explained, you must achieve total control while keeping political stability and protecting civilians. Force alone has never worked. Victory needs patience, diplomacy, and smart resource use. The alien cadets nodded seriously, clearly understanding how big this challenge was. However, Vexhai's crystal body shifted as he looked at the humans. We have decided to make an exception. Our Deathworld observers will be allowed to participate, but they will get a separate, easier scenario so they are not overwhelmed. The talking down tone in the instructor's voice was clear, but Jake Martinez stepped forward. With respect, instructor, we would rather try the same scenario as everyone else. Surprised chatter went through the room of alien cadets. Several species that the humans could not identify made what sounded like amused clicking sounds. That would not be wise, Vexhai replied. This simulation has challenged the greatest military minds in galactic history. Perhaps you do not understand how complex this is. Lisa Park joined Jake. We understand it's complex. We still want to try. The instructor's many eyes seemed to shine with something between amusement and annoyance. Very well. You may attempt the standard scenario. When you realize you cannot succeed, you may return to just watching at any time. As teams were given their starting positions, the humans found themselves grouped together in what was clearly meant to limit any damage they might cause. They were put in a small side room with a basic holographic display, separate from the main teams who were already starting their careful study of political structures and economic relationships. Pete Williams studied the display quietly while his teammates talked about their options. The scenario was indeed very complex, a three-dimensional puzzle of competing interests, old grudges, and delicate balances of power. Look at this, Amy said, pointing to different parts. Every action causes 12 other reactions. Move a fleet here, and you mess up the trade route there. Put pressure on this government, and you push these 3 systems toward your enemies. Ryan Cole nodded, his military experience helping him understand the tactical parts. It's like a huge chess game, except every piece affects every other piece and the board keeps changing while you play. That's exactly the point, Lisa said. They're testing strategic thinking on a galactic level. No wonder it takes weeks to finish. Jake was quiet for a moment, studying the display. Something about the scenario felt familiar, though he could not figure out why. What if we're thinking about this wrong, he said finally. What do you mean? Amy asked. They keep talking about centuries of refined doctrine and patience and careful resource management, Jake said. But what if that's exactly the wrong way to think? Pete Williams looked up from his quiet study of the display. What are you thinking? Jake pointed to the central contested system that everyone was fighting over. What if instead of trying to win this political chess game, we just ended it completely? The other humans stared at him. Around them, through the transparent walls of their small room, they could see the alien teams beginning their slow, careful analysis of the situation. Some were drawing charts of political relationships. Others were calculating economic advantages. All of them were moving with the deliberate slowness of people who had all the time in the world. Ended how? Lisa asked. Jake was still staring at the display, his mind working fast. I don't know yet, but look at what they're all doing. He pointed toward the alien teams. They're approaching this like they have forever to figure it out, like there's no urgency at all. Maybe there isn't, Amy said. This is a simulation, not a real war. But what if it was real? Ryan asked, understanding where Jake was going. What if people were dying while we spent weeks playing politics? Pete looked up from his calculations. On Earth, we don't get weeks to figure things out. If there's a problem, you fix it fast or people die. Lisa was starting to understand too. You're saying we should approach this like it's an emergency, not like it's an academic exercise. Exactly, Jake said. These aliens have the luxury of time. They can spend weeks being careful and diplomatic because nothing bad happens if they go slow. But we're from a death world, Ryan added. Where going slow gets you killed. Amy looked around at her teammates. So what do we do differently? Jake grinned. We stop trying to play their game and start playing ours. While the alien team spent their first day carefully studying political relationships and economic connections, the humans took a completely different approach. They gathered around their holographic display with the focused energy of doctors, treating an emergency patient. Okay, forget everything they told us about centuries of doctrine, Jake said. Let's look at this like humans, not like galactic strategists. Lisa pulled up detailed scans of the central contested system that everyone was fighting over. The whole conflict is about controlling the Nexus system. It has the major hyperspace junction and the richest mining worlds. And all three major powers have fleets positioned around it in this careful balance, Ryan added, studying the tactical display. Nobody wants to make the first move because it would start a massive three-way battle. Amy nodded. So they're all trying to gain advantage through politics and economics instead of direct military action. Very civilized. Very slow, Pete corrected quietly. He had been running calculations on his personal tablet. Jake's right. We're thinking about this wrong. The others looked at him, waiting. Pete had always been the most tactical-minded among them, with an ability to see solutions that others missed. They're all focused on controlling the Nexus system, Pete continued. But what if nobody could control it? You mean destroy it? Lisa asked, looking shocked. The civilian casualties would be enormous. That's exactly what the simulation is. Designed to prevent? No, not destroy it, Pete said, his fingers moving fast over his tablet as he pulled up star map data. Look at the hyperspace routes. The display changed to show the network of faster-than-light travel lanes that connected the various systems. The Nexus system sat at the center like a massive hub, with routes going outward to connect the entire region. The reason everyone wants to control Nexus is because you can't get anywhere without going through it, Pete explained. But what if you could? Ryan caught on first. You're talking about opening new hyperspace routes. Exactly, Pete said. Look here. He highlighted several systems on the edge of the conflict zone. If we could establish even 2 new hyperspace corridors connecting these outer systems, we'd completely bypass Nexus. Suddenly, nobody needs to control it because it's not strategically necessary anymore. Lisa was already running calculations. The energy requirements would be massive, but theoretically possible with the resources available in the scenario. It would take what, maybe 6 months of concentrated effort? Amy asked. Less, Pete replied. If we coordinated properly and used some of the contested resources that everyone's fighting over, we could do it in weeks. Jake grinned. And while everyone else is spending months maneuvering for political advantage, we just make the whole conflict pointless. But how do we get access to those resources while there's an active three-way standoff? Ryan asked. That's the beautiful part, Lisa said, catching on to the plan. We don't pick sides. We approach all three factions with the same proposal, contribute resources to the hyperspace project, and everyone benefits. No more choke point, no more strategic necessity for controlling Nexus. They might not go for it, Amy pointed out. They've been positioning for this conflict for years. Then we make them an offer they can't refuse, Jake said. We start the project anyway, using resources from the neutral systems. Once we prove it's viable, the major powers either join or get left behind. Pete was already inputting commands into the simulation interface. I'm running the calculations now. If we move fast and coordinate properly, the holographic display began showing new hyperspace routes forming, connecting previously isolated systems. Resource allocation charts showed how neutral systems could contribute to the project while remaining neutral. Political analysis showed how the changed strategic situation would affect various factions. Holy crap, Ryan whispered. How long do you think this will take? Pete looked up from his calculations with a slight smile. If everything goes according to plan, about 3 hours. Through the transparent wall of their chamber, they could see the alien team still in their first day of careful analysis, mapping political relationships and economic dependencies with methodical precision. Amy looked at her teammates. Are we really about to do this? We're really about to do this, Jake confirmed. Lisa started the first phase of their plan, sending simultaneous communications to all neutral systems proposing the Hyperspace Corridor project. Within the simulation, responses began coming back, almost immediately. Most neutral systems were eager to break free from the stranglehold of major power politics. Ryan coordinated the military aspects, making sure that defensive fleets were positioned to protect the construction sites without threatening any of the major powers. His marine background proved valuable in thinking about force protection and logistics. Amy handled the humanitarian elements, making sure that civilian populations were protected and that the benefits of the new trade routes would be distributed fairly among all participants. Pete managed the technical aspects, coordinating the massive engineering project across multiple systems while maintaining the precise timing necessary for success. And Jake orchestrated the whole operation, keeping track of dozens of moving pieces while maintaining diplomatic communications with increasingly confused major power representatives. Neutral system coalition to major powers, Jake transmitted on all channels. We are proceeding with the Nexus Bypass Project. Your participation is welcome but not required. Estimated completion in 2 hours 47 minutes. Through their chamber walls, they could see alien cadets turning to stare at their display in confusion. The alien teams were still carefully mapping out which political leaders might be influenced and what economic pressures could be applied over the coming weeks. Meanwhile, the humans were already 3/4 of the way through a solution that would make all that planning irrelevant. Look at them, Lisa said, nodding toward the other teams. They're still trying to figure out who to talk to first. It's not their fault, Amy said. This is how they've always done things, slow and careful. Yeah, but slow and careful doesn't work when people are dying, Ryan replied. Pete looked up from his calculations. 2 hours, 12 minutes until completion. The major powers are starting to panic. Indeed, the simulation was showing frantic communications between the three major factions as they realized that their carefully positioned fleets and political maneuvering were about to become completely pointless. They're going to have to choose, Jake said. Join the project or be left behind. And if they choose to fight? Amy asked. Pete smiled. Then they'll be fighting all the neutral systems working together, plus whichever major powers decide to join the project. Not great odds. The display showed the major powers' responses. One by one, they began requesting to join the hyperspace project rather than risk being excluded from the new economic opportunities it would create. Game over, Ryan said quietly. And through the walls, they could see alien instructors rushing toward their chamber with expressions of complete bewilderment. Instructor Vexhai was talking with several senior teachers when his assistant ran up with urgent news. Sir, you need to see what the humans are doing. The main simulation display showed something that had never happened before. While the various alien teams continued their careful first-day analysis of political structures, the human section showed a flurry of activity that made no sense according to traditional strategic thinking. "What are they doing?" demanded Professor Kethavar, a legendary strategist whose own simulation record had stood for decades. Vexhi's crystal body shifted through several confused shapes as he studied the display. "It appears they are bypassing the entire conflict scenario." "That's impossible," said Dr. Helix of the Zenthari people. "The Nexus system is the strategic cornerstone of the entire simulation. You cannot simply ignore it." But the human display showed otherwise. New hyperspace routes were forming at an unprecedented pace, connecting previously isolated systems and creating alternative pathways that eliminated the strategic importance of the contested Nexus system. "How long have they been working on this?" Vexhi asked. 2 hours and 37 minutes, the assistant replied. The faculty members stared at each other in disbelief. Most teams spent their first week just mapping the political relationships. "Pause the simulation," Vexhi ordered. "We need to analyze what they've done." But before the pause command could be implemented, new alerts began appearing across the display. The major powers in the simulation, faced with the sudden irrelevance of their carefully positioned forces, were rapidly negotiating to join the hyperspace project rather than be left behind. "Sir," the assistant said quietly, "the simulation is showing completion conditions being met." Vexhi's many eyes focused on the display with laser intensity. "That cannot be correct. Run diagnostics on the system." "Diagnostics complete, sir. All systems functioning normally." Professor Kethavar moved closer to the display. "Show me their resource allocation." The display shifted to show how the humans had coordinated the massive engineering project. Instead of the traditional approach of building military superiority and then using it for political gain, they had created a solution that benefited everyone involved. "Brilliant," Kethavar whispered. "They didn't try to win the conflict. They made the conflict meaningless." Dr. Helix was studying the tactical elements. "Look at their force positioning. They never threatened anyone directly, but they made it clear that interference with the project would be met with coordinated resistance from all participating systems." "And their diplomatic approach," added another faculty member. "Instead of trying to build coalitions against their enemies, they created a situation where everyone had more to gain by cooperating than by fighting." Vexhi was silent for a long moment, studying the display. "Time to completion?" 17 minutes, sir." The instructor looked at the alien cadet teams, still working through their first day of analysis with methodical care. Then he looked at the human chamber, where 5 Deathworlders had just solved an 8-century-old strategic puzzle in less than 3 hours. "Open communications to all teams," Vexhi ordered. The chamber fell silent as the instructor's voice echoed through the space. "The grand strategic simulation has been completed. Total time, 2 hours, 57 minutes. This represents a new record by a factor of approximately 23. Shocked murmurs erupted from the alien cadets. Several species made distressed sounds that the translation system turned into variations of impossible. The winning solution, Vexhi continued, was achieved by the human team through an approach that challenges traditional strategic doctrine. Jake Martinez stepped forward in the human chamber. "Request permission to explain our methodology, sir." Permission granted. The main display shifted to show the human solution in detail. Jake's voice carried clearly through the chamber as he explained their approach. "We realized that everyone was trying to control the Nexus system because it was strategically vital," he said. "So instead of fighting over it, we made it strategically irrelevant. New hyperspace routes mean nobody needs to control the choke point, so there's no reason to fight." "But the resource requirements," protested a Keithian cadet. "The coordination necessary, the political complexities." Lisa Park stepped forward. "That's exactly why it worked. Instead of spending weeks building coalitions against our enemies, we built a coalition that included everyone. Why fight over limited resources when you can create abundance? Professor Kethavar moved closer to the human chamber. Your approach completely bypassed traditional military doctrine. Yes, sir, Ryan Cole replied. Where we come from, traditional doctrine gets you killed. Sometimes you have to think outside the box. Dr. Helix studied the display intently. The energy expenditure alone should have taken months to coordinate. Pete Williams looked up from his calculations. Only if you try to do it the slow way. We coordinated parallel construction across multiple systems simultaneously. Instead of building one route carefully, we built 6 routes quickly. But the risk, another faculty member protested. If any element had failed, the entire project would have collapsed. Amy Foster nodded. That's true, but the alternative was a prolonged conflict with guaranteed casualties. Sometimes acceptable risk is better than certain loss. Vexhai studied the humans for a long moment. Your world truly is a Class 12 death world, he said finally. I begin to understand what that means. How so, sir? Jake asked. On worlds like ours, conflict is managed through careful negotiation and gradual adjustment. We have the luxury of time, the instructor explained. But on death worlds, survival requires immediate action and innovative solutions. You think in terms of decisive action because hesitation means death. The alien cadets were studying the human solution with growing amazement. What had seemed like reckless improvisation was revealed as carefully calculated tactical innovation. There is one question, Professor Kethavar said. How did you know this approach would work? The humans looked at each other and grinned. Pete Williams answered for all of them. We didn't, he said simply. But where we come from, you don't get to know if something will work before you try it. You just have to be smart enough to adapt when it doesn't. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. 8 centuries of refined strategic doctrine had just been revolutionized by 5 young humans who approached the problem like their lives depended on solving it quickly. Instructor Vexhai's crystal body shifted through several configurations before settling into what the humans recognized as respectful attention. It appears, the instructor said carefully, that we have much to learn from death world tactical thinking. Jake Martinez looked around at his teammates, then back at the assembled faculty and cadets. With respect, sir, we think there might be value in combining our approaches. Your patience and our urgency, your experience and our innovation. Indeed, Vexhai replied. I believe this simulation marks the beginning of a new era in galactic strategic thinking. As the chamber erupted in excited discussion among dozens of species, the 5 human cadets quietly gathered their equipment. They had come to Kepler Station as curiosities from a primitive world. They were leaving as the architects of a strategic revolution. And somewhere in the back of his mind, Jake Martinez was already wondering what other impossible problems might benefit from a little death world thinking.